probably going to annoy a lot of people with this one. It's about working from home on game development. And I think by far it is better to work in person together on games or anything creative. And I think that because it's not just about like being included in the conversations, but it's being included in conversations you shouldn't have been included in, that you didn't have to be included in. Because it helps you understand the game as a whole. So games are these complex pieces that have a bunch of moving parts. And what you want to avoid is somebody just caring about their little part, their little thing, right? In art, we would call them pixel sexual engagement. I don't know, whatever. But like, because they just cared about that. They didn't care about what they're working on. They didn't care about the movie they're working on. They don't care about the game they're working on. They just care about their piece of art looking right. And you don't want those kind of people. What you want are the kind of people who are understanding that their contribution is in the whole big thing. And so now you don't want to have people in every single meeting. But I really liked the Anacrusis when we were about 6 people, all working in the same place, all hanging out, all listening to the same music together. And we were moving really fast because of that, because we were all talking about it together all the time, and everyone was part of the same conversations. And that's one of the reasons why we were able to ship a game in 2 years, even though the pandemic came then, right? And the pandemic was super disruptive. Because also, like just being in person, you go for walks. Design walks are my favorite, right? You just go for walks and you're talking about what the game is. But you're also just talking about everything and seeing everything else, and all that other input and all of that other things happening are great. But here's the paradox. I also like working from home. I like being with my family. I like hanging out with my cats. Boris hangs out with me most days when I'm working in the office, and I like that. I like that a lot. So I don't want to go back fully to the office. But I don't think just going in like the one day a week and hey, we're going to have all our design meetings that day actually replicates what makes the best games. Because what makes the best game is this kind of that hanging out, that when you don't have to be talking about the same thing, or even on your game, you're just talking about other things and you're getting references so you understand that when that person says they don't like the color black, what they really mean is this, because they're talking about this in this movie or whatever, right? Like there's all this nuance about it, and it really is that games are made of a bunch of different disciplines all working together on a shared goal. And I think one of the problems we had when we turned for the Anacrusis midway through and we became remote was some pieces fell off, because as a person managing 20 people, there were times where I just had to let things go. I mean, we had problems with, there's supposed to be a little intro story to every single map to give you the background of what's happening there. Those fell off because that person wasn't good at picking up their information from meetings where there were multiple people. I had to give them their information directly, one-on-one, and that was the only way they ever picked up the information. Now, that's my failure of realizing that late, but it's also frustrating because I'm not with that person every minute like I would be in the office, so I wasn't able to see that. And you see a lot of these kind of bad behaviors happen, and there's some people who struggle with things and people who struggle with work. Some people, when they're working from home, just get distracted, and it's really hard. And some of it's because they have family and kids and all that, and that's awesome, but also hard and problematic, right? And so, yeah, I really like working in the office, and I really like working from home, and I like it both. And you're not going to work at my house because that is not the solution you might think it is. Boris wouldn't like it, that alone. But yeah, that is the problem I have. Is we think of like, not this little fun thing I'm making, because it's kind of the year off. We'll see like January, like the next thing. And then how do we do that? How do we do that in a way? Is it like you come into the office 2 days a week, maybe, and you kind of just don't have it filled with meetings? And instead you're just doing work there, but that means you have to duplicate computers and everything. And the crazy thing is, I wish we were starting our studio right now, because office space is dirt cheap. My God, is office space cheap in Seattle. And salaries are lower. When we were hiring, salaries were through the roof. People were getting $1 million a year from Meta, and they're not getting that anymore, right? And so I want people to get paid well. I want people to do well, but when we're competing against it as a small indie studio, it was hard. So it's like a perfect time right now, but also I don't feel like doing it right now because I like working from home. No. But yeah, I think our next project would be, I'd want everybody to be in Seattle. If only for a couple days a week. And, you know, other people are like, oh, we leave chat on, we do this, we do that. It's all artificial and doesn't quite pull that off. I don't know. I'm kind of curious if people do have super successful, and don't tell me like you have one meeting a day, and like we did that at our best. We were one meeting a day where we just blew time and we just hung out, we just chatted, and we had that more nuance since we had an understanding. But it's still just hard. It's still just hard. I mean, it could just be I'm an old man stuck in my ways and I'm bad at it myself, and so then I transpose that onto other people. I'll accept that, but equally, I'll accept that that's what I want. I don't know. Like I think as long as you're fair and clear with people going into it, it's fair, right? If you say, hey, we meet 2 times a week, you got to be in Seattle. It's fair. The hard thing for us again was that the pandemic came midway through development, and all of a sudden we got turned on our end. And some of the people we hired just simply were not good at working remotely, and needed a lot more hand holding and a lot more personal care on that. And that was just really hard because I was also having a pandemic and struggling, and my mother dying, and like a ton of stuff, right? Like life gets in the way, and so as somebody who cares about people working, I both want to give them, make sure their lives are good and having all of that, but also want to have the best thing for the game, right? It's a real tension.